everybody to Noah Nussbaum's senior speech. Yes. Noah joined Augusta Prep in the 7th grade, and since that time, I've gotten to see him take on a leadership role that has helped steer the class of 2020 to the class it is today. He was class president in 9th grade, and since 10th grade, he's been class president to now. He's been chess club president for the past 2 years, organizing our tournaments, making the club very fun and active. He's been the science club vice president and treasurer in 11th and 12th grade, and now in his senior year, he is co-founder of the newly established film club. Outside of taking on officer roles in the chess club and science club, he has participated in theater, joining Thespian Troop 1324, Squad M, NHS, chorus. He competed in varsity tennis in 9th and 10th grade. He has competed in literary and our boys solo, and he helped run AP Live at our games in 10th and 11th grade. Family and friends here today include his father, Dr. Julian Nussbaum, his mother, Dr. Stephanie Goey, his sister Maya in 9th grade, his grandfather, Dr. John Tick Goey, and his grandmother, Louise Goey, his Aunt Vita Goey, his nephew, Noam Pison, family friend Cassie McGill, also present Jeff Miles and Stephanie Duncan, who taught Noah in elementary school. Outside of prep, Noah has taught in Hebrew school. He plays piano and guitar. He enjoys classical singing. He enjoys studying martial arts, which he will be enlightening us on today. Please welcome Noah Nussbaum to the podium.
When I say the term martial arts, what do you think about? The Karate Kid? A black belt? What about Jack Sinnott? Now let us get even more specific. When I mention Bruce Lee, what comes to mind? I would imagine that a significant proportion of my audience imagines something along these lines. Despite the obvious cheesiness of the films, though, Bruce Lee used Hollywood to introduce Kung Fu to the Western world. Until then, the Chinese had kept the different styles of Kung Fu to themselves, refusing to share it with any other ethnic group. Then Lee came along and began teaching his style of Kung Fu, known as Wing Chun, to non-Chinese in America. Although he continued to face intense opposition from Chinese communities in both Asia and the United States, Lee pushed the Chinese fighting system into the spotlight via the film industry. Despite his indisputable success, though, Bruce Lee grew tired of a traditional fighting style. In 1969, he introduced his own system called the Way of Intercepting the Fist, or in Cantonese, Jeet Kune Do. The martial arts community more commonly refers to Jeet Kune Do as JKD. I would not be surprised, though, if almost everyone listening to me right now has never heard of it. I even asked a few members of our community what they thought JKD could stand for. Katie Sinnott made a highly educated guess with Jesus killing diaper. Charlotte Leroy, on the other hand, insisted that it stood for justify Katie's death. I began to lose hope, so I deferred to our class genius, Echo Adu, to see if he knew. I hardly knew how to respond when he guessed just killed Daddy. But how is it that a cultural icon like Bruce Lee would found a martial arts system that seems at first glance largely unknown? You see, when my 10-year-old self visited Southeast JKD Athletic Club, for the first time, the martial arts form I saw looked, for lack of better words, too easy. As a matter of fact, Bruce Lee even described his new fighting system as, quote, Kung Fu that is simple, direct, and non-classic, end quote. Indeed, you will not find any spinning airborne kicks or nunchuck forms in Jeet Kune Do. However, the ideas involved in using JKD techniques are actually quite complicated. Why is this so? This is because JKD is all about individuality and self-discovery. In the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, Lee writes, quote, if you follow the classical pattern, you are understanding the routine, the tradition, the shadow. You are not understanding yourself, end quote. In the years I trained Jeet Kune Do, it became obvious that Lee was not speaking empty words. I did not learn any elegant forms or how to break a slab of wood. I did learn, though, to discipline my mind, learn about myself, and read my opponent. Still, I know some of you are wondering why all this is relevant to you. surely isn't possible for me to teach all of you how to fight in the remaining 10 minutes, at least not physically. What I can do, though, is equip you with parts of the JKD mentality. First, though, it makes sense for me to demonstrate some examples of JKD technique. So as we bring the lights up, I'm going to ask my sister Maya, who's a freshman, to come out and help me show some stuff. When Bruce Lee first created JKD in the 60s, he took stuff from all over the martial arts world, from obviously Wing Chun Kung Fu, but even fencing and Western boxing. And nowadays we've added Kali, which is a Filipino martial arts, which is a lot of knife fighting, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is takedowns, takedown defenses, and wrestling. And I was going to show you how they all blended together, because JKD is all about adaptability, being able to adapt to any situation. But as some of you know, I hurt my knee earlier in the week, so I'm kind of limited in what I can show you. But this is good because it allows me to focus on the Wing Chun aspect, which I doubt any of you guys have seen before. So a couple things to know about Wing Chun Kung Fu is that, one, it's all about feeling. You actually train Wing Chun blindfolded because seeing things can set you off. It's really reacting to a certain feeling in your opponent. And furthermore, everything that we're going to do is centered. Every hand movement, you'll see right here, is centered because it's strong. Maya's going to do one right now called the Bong Sao. It's a defensive move. It's a weird looking thing. But you see, if it's centered, and she has it centered right here, it's very strong. But if I move it off the center, it collapses entirely. So that doesn't mean you can't hit someone from the side, but it means you move to the side and keep things along your own center line. Lastly, is that Jeet Kune Do is the way of intercepting the fist. It's not locking the fist, or it's not the way of boxing. It's the way of intercepting. So you intercept your opponent's force and use it for your own. So for example, this is a common place to start with drills. And when Maya feels me, for example, push, she knows this triggers a lop sound. Again, I push, and she just feeds into it. And she's hardly doing anything, it's all my force. Similarly, if she feels a slight retreat, she knows it's a pop sound. Now, it's reasonable to say that if you're not a martial artist, you tend not to last long against Wing Chun. This is called trapping because the objective is to trap your opponent's hands to leave them defenseless. So this time, let's say I feel her retreating, so I box out, and she's going to come up with another box out. Because if you are a trained martial artist, or any form, like karate even, which is a lot of blocking, you know how to block. It's as simple as that. So she's going to come up with a box out. But this is motion against me. So we can do that box out I showed you before, and then I can come up with another strike. So if we were to do that together, it would be. Similarly, you can build onto that. Let's say this is a really good martial artist. So remember that Bong Sao before. I'll box out, strike, lop Sao, strike, and she'll lock the strike with a Bong Sao. That would look like this. You can build on that even more, because this is a forward motion, so you can lop Sao again. You can build up on it one more time, so we'll do it like this. And we'll take it slowly at first so you guys can see it. Right there. And once again, I move to the side, everything's centered. Things are stronger on the center. The crazy thing about martial arts is, especially Jeet Kune Do, is that it's all about the present situation. It's not like chess or anything fact, Lee's willingness to blend different styles together to create efficiency set the precedent for the mixed martial arts now seen in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, better known as UFC. Jeet Kune Do continues to change from generation to generation, and the most advanced levels are less about learning new techniques and more about developing your own style. JKD and its parent, Wing Chun, have served many individuals well over the years. Brazilian middleweight Anderson Silva finished a 34-10 career record in the UFC by incorporating Bruce Lee's trapping into his Muay Thai kickboxing style. Another professional fighter, John Jones, utilized low block kicks to master his defensive strategy on the cage. The most renowned UFC fighter to use these Kung Fu tactics is actually Tony Ferguson, who even trains using a traditional Wing Chun Do. Of course, this innovative fighting style is not restricted to sports fighting. The martial arts community continues to consider JKD as one of the most practical styles for street self-defense. More relevant to the speech, though, is how this martial arts mentality has helped people. Believe it or not, Robert Downey Jr. studied the Wing Chun roots of Jeet Kune Do to help him in his drug recovery and journey back to the film industry. After over 16 years, RDJ still trains today. In an interview on the Joe Rogan Experience from early 2020, RDJ explains, quote, "Half the stuff that I have been able to do right in my creative life are principles I learned on the mat with my seat. Because Wing Chun problems are life problems, and life problems are Wing Chun problems," end quote. I, for one, can relate on a personal level to this claim. I chose this topic because my JKD background has made a resurgence in my life in the last few months. My grandfather, who lived with my family for 9 years, passed away this past summer. Looking back on my memories of him, I wondered how someone could live each day of such a long life to the fullest. Furthermore, going into senior year, I began to reflect on what made me the person I am now. What have been the defining experiences in my life? Every day for months now, these questions have invaded my mind. So I thought about it, and then I thought some more. Suddenly, I realized that a significant proportion of these personality-changing moments occurred as a direct result of my involvement in Jeet Kune Do. The principles I learned from these instances can help every member of our young generation move forward in today's conflicted world. Generation Z is inheriting a very complicated world. As a result, it is inevitable that each one of us will face extreme conflict over the course of our lives. The JKD ideals can help all of us here. They are, I have no doubt, the same ideals that my grandfather followed to come out on top of life's struggles. So here are some lessons for all of us. 1, guard your center. The closer any action lies to your center, your true self, the stronger you are. If a potential conflict in life asks you to distance yourself from your true identity, simply move out of the way. Otherwise, you'll find yourself weak and vulnerable. Never let anyone harm your core, and stay true to yourself. Get to the blind side. In a fight, you disengage from an intense scenario by stepping out of the altercation's established rhythm. In today's world, many people do not form their own opinions about an issue. Instead, they join a group supporting one of the most popular ideas. Please avoid doing this. Doing so just places an argument in a never-ending rhythm and pattern. Think for yourself. Take an approach that nobody else would have seen coming. You just might find that you have loosened up a previously tense situation. Do not fight force with force. Anyone who argues otherwise is making an enormous error. I would argue that this is the second most prominent principle in all of Jeet Kune Do. Remember that Jeet Kune Do means the way of intercepting a fist. So do not counter force with more force. Intercept it. When the opposition is tough, take their drive and use it to your advantage. The last principle I will mention is the very foundation of all of Jeet Kune Do. I want you to close your eyes and keep them closed until I say otherwise. Imagine a river. Think about the water in the river. It flows downstream quickly and smoothly. Suddenly, it meets a rock. Does the water stop? No. Does it face the rock head on? No, it moves around the rock. Over time, the endless flow erodes at the stone, sculpting it as it sees fit. Now you take a cup and fill it with the water from a stream, and proceed to pour it into a plastic bag. You can open your eyes. I know all of you are wondering why I just made you do this. You see, before he had completely developed JKD, Bruce Lee knew that he wanted his new system to be just like water. He wanted a person using his system to be able to adapt to any environment, yet remain pure in technique and principle. Similarly, we must make ourselves adaptable in all areas of life. The world is changing, and we must be willing to change with it. Thankfully, most people agree with us. The part that people don't seem to understand, though, is that we can It is not easy to learn new ways to live life and to think while remaining unchanged at heart. It is a skill that requires never-ending practice. However, I really do believe that if all of our generation were to master this ability, we would have a much brighter future ahead of us. So remember,